Captain Lee Ji-won stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony and watched the stars through the main screen. The ship had been traveling through deep space for 3 months now, and the crew was getting used to the endless darkness between worlds. They were humanity's first real attempt at exploring beyond their own solar system, and so far they had found nothing but empty space and distant suns. The communication console suddenly came alive with sounds that made everyone on the bridge turn around. Dr. Park Min-ho rushed over to his station where strange signals were coming through the speakers. The sounds were not random noise from space, but something that had patterns and meaning. Someone or something was trying to talk to them. "Captain, this is not natural," Dr. Park said as he worked with his equipment. "These signals are coming from outside our solar system, and they are definitely made by intelligence." Lee Ji-won felt her, heart beating faster as she realized what this meant. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe, and now they had their answer. She ordered the crew to record everything and told Dr. Park to try to understand what the signals meant. For the next 6 hours, Dr. Park worked with his computers and translation programs while the rest of the crew waited. Engineer Choi Young-ji helped him by analyzing the mathematical patterns in the signals, while Communications Officer Kim Do-yeon made sure they were recording every detail. Finally, Dr. Park looked up from his work with a strange expression on his face. He had decoded enough of the message to understand its basic meaning, and what he found was not what anyone expected. "Captain, they call themselves the Velkari Empire," he said slowly. "They say they have been watching humanity for many years, and they want to give us a gift." The word gift made everyone feel hopeful at first, but Dr. Park did not look happy. He continued working on the translation, and soon the full message became clear. The aliens were sending detailed information about simple tools and basic technology that they thought would help humanity develop. When Dr. Park showed the translated message on the main screen, everyone fell silent. The Velkari were offering humanity things like better farming tools, simple mathematics lessons, and basic ways to make energy. They explained these gifts in a way that sounded like adults talking to young children who did not know anything about the world. "They think we are primitive," Engineer Choi Young-ji said as she read through the list of gifts. "Look at this farming equipment. We had better tools than this 1,000 years ago." The message also included videos of Velkari worlds that showed incredible cities floating in space and technology that seemed almost magical. Their ships moved without any visible engines, and their buildings seemed to bend light itself. The contrast between their advanced civilization and the simple gifts they offered made their attitude very clear. Dr. Yoon Sora, the ship's physicist, studied the technical details of the Velkari gifts and shook her head in disbelief. The energy generation methods they offered were less efficient than what humanity had been using for decades. The mathematical concepts they wanted to teach were things that human children learned in basic school. They have not even looked at our real civilization, she said. "These gifts are based on observations of our most basic rural areas. They completely ignored our cities and technology." Communications Officer Kim Do-yeon discovered something even more insulting when he analyzed the signal transmission itself. The Velkari had not even used their best communication technology to contact humanity. They were using old and simple methods, as if they did not think humans deserved their attention. The message ended with the Velkari ambassador Thekmore explaining that humanity should be grateful for this attention from such an advanced civilization. He said that very few species received gifts from the Velkari Empire, and that humanity should consider themselves lucky. The tone of the message made it clear that the aliens saw humans as nothing more than an interesting pet species that might be worth helping. Captain Lee Ji-won read through the entire message 3 times before she fully understood what had happened. The first contact between humanity and alien intelligence had not been a meeting between equals. Instead, it was a powerful civilization looking down at what they thought was a group of primitive creatures barely worth their time. Cultural analyst Jang Hyok pointed out something even worse about the message. The Velkari had not asked anything about human culture or values. They had not tried to learn about human art, music, or philosophy. They simply assumed that humanity had nothing to offer except a willingness to accept charity. The crew of the Harmony spent the rest of the day discussing what this meant for humanity. Some thought they should be grateful that such an advanced species had noticed them at all. Others felt angry about being treated like children who needed help with basic survival. Engineer Choi Youngji made an important discovery when she studied the technical specifications that came with the Velkari gifts. The tools and technology they offered were not just simple, but they were deliberately made to be less effective than what they could have provided. It was as if they wanted to help humanity just enough to keep them dependent, but not enough to let them truly advance. Dr. Park Min-ho found evidence that the Velkari had contacted other species in the galaxy using similar messages. In each case, they had offered basic gifts and positioned themselves as generous benefactors helping primitive civilizations. The pattern suggested that this was how the Velkari Empire maintained its position of power. As the day ended, Captain Lee Ji-won faced the most important decision of her career. Earth's politicians would expect her to send a grateful response that thanked the Velkari for their generous gifts. The safe choice would be to accept the role of primitive species and hope that the aliens would continue to help humanity develop slowly under their guidance. But Lee Ji-won looked at her crew and saw something different. She saw humans who had built a ship capable of traveling between stars. She saw scientists who understood the universe in ways that the Velkari clearly did not appreciate. She saw engineers who had created technology that the aliens had dismissed without even examining. The captain realized that the Velkari had made a critical mistake. They had judged humanity based on incomplete information, and they had revealed their own weaknesses in the process. Their condescending attitude showed that they were not used to dealing with equals, and they probably had never faced a species that could challenge their assumptions. Lee Ji-won called her senior staff together and told them that humanity would respond to the Velkari message, but not in the way that anyone expected. They would craft a reply that would show the aliens exactly what kind of species they had chosen to insult. The response would be polite and diplomatic on the surface, but it would carry a message that would echo across the stars and change everything. Captain Lee Ji-won gathered her senior staff in the main conference room of the UES Harmony. The alien message from the Velkari Empire still glowed on the central display, and everyone could feel the weight of the moment. What they decided here would determine how humanity entered the galactic community. Communications Officer Kim Do-yeon had already received 3 urgent messages from Earth Command, telling them to send a grateful and humble response to the aliens. The politicians back home were worried about making a bad first impression and wanted to accept whatever relationship the Velkari offered. They want us to thank them for the gifts and ask for more help. Kim Do-yeon reported, Earth Command thinks we should be careful not to anger such an advanced civilization. But Captain Lee Ji-won had made her decision during the long night while she walked through the empty corridors of her ship. She had thought about what it meant to be human and what her species had achieved in their short time among the stars. We are going to respond, she told her staff, but not the way Earth expects. We are going to show the Velkari exactly who they are dealing with. Dr. Park Min-ho looked worried about this plan because he understood how powerful the alien empire appeared to be. Their technology was clearly more advanced than anything humanity possessed, and their message suggested they controlled many worlds across the galaxy. Captain, if we anger them, they might decide we are a threat, he said. They could destroy our entire civilization before we even know they are coming, engineer. Choi Youngji had been thinking about the same problem, but she had reached a different conclusion. After studying the Velkari message carefully, she believed that their attitude revealed important weaknesses. They think they already know everything about us, she said. That kind of arrogance makes people blind to what is really happening. If we surprise them, it might give us an advantage. Captain Lee Ji-won asked Dr. Yoon Sora to prepare a technical summary of human achievements that would show the aliens what they had missed. The physicist had spent years working on the quantum drive systems that powered their ship, and she knew that human technology was not as primitive as the Velkari assumed. Cultural analyst Yang Hyuk suggested something even more important. Instead of just showing human technology, they should demonstrate what made humanity truly different from other species. The aliens had offered tools and basic knowledge, but they had completely ignored human culture and values. They think intelligence is just about building better machines, Jang Hyuk explained. But humans have something else. We have art and music and stories that show who we really are. Maybe that is what they need to see. The team spent the next 2 days crafting a response that would change everything. They started with polite language that thanked the Velkari for their interest in humanity. Dr. Park Min-ho made sure the translation was perfect and that the tone remained respectful throughout. But then the message began to reveal things that the aliens had not expected. Dr. Yoon Sora included detailed technical specifications for the quantum drive that powered their ship, the mathematics behind human antimatter reactors, the neural interface technology that allowed humans to control complex systems with their thoughts. Each technical detail was presented as a simple example of human achievement. The message explained that humanity appreciated the Velkari gifts, but had already developed similar technology many centuries ago. The farming tools were described as interesting historical artifacts that reminded humans of their own ancient past. Engineer Choi Young-ji added information about human manufacturing capabilities. The message included specifications for their space elevators, orbital shipyards, and automated mining systems. All of this was presented as basic infrastructure that any spacefaring civilization would naturally develop. Communications Officer Kim Do-yoon suggested something that made the message even more powerful. Instead of just sending the response to the Velkari, they would broadcast it to every alien civilization that the Empire had contacted. The message would become a public statement that reached across the galaxy. If other species see this, they will know that the Velkari made a mistake. Kim Do-yoon explained. It might encourage them to speak up about their own experiences. Cultural analyst Jang Hyuk worked on the most important part of the human response. He included examples of human art, music, literature, and philosophy that showed the depth of human civilization. The message contained symphonies that moved listeners to tears, paintings that captured the beauty of distant worlds, and poems that expressed the full range of human emotion. But Yang Hyuk also included darker examples that showed humanity's capacity for both creation and destruction. War songs that spoke of courage in hopeless battles, stories about individuals who chose to sacrifice everything for their principles, philosophy that grappled with questions about the meaning of existence and the nature of consciousness. We are not just another species that builds tools and follows orders, Jang Hyuk said, as he worked on the cultural section. We are beings who choose our own path even when it leads to suffering. That might be something the Velkari have never encountered. Dr. Yoon Sora added something that surprised everyone. She included the mathematical proofs behind human understanding of consciousness and free will. The message explained that humans had learned to create artificial minds that could think and choose for themselves. This was not just technology, but philosophy made real. The response reached its climax with a simple statement that carried enormous implications. Humanity thanked the Velkari for their concern, but explained that humans needed no gifts from other species. Instead, the message offered something that the aliens had not expected. Humans were willing to trade and cooperate as equals with any civilization that shared their values of individual freedom and mutual respect. We do not seek to rule others or to be ruled by them. The message concluded. We believe that every thinking being has the right to choose their own destiny. If the Velkari Empire shares these values, then we welcome the opportunity to learn from each other as equals. The final section of the response was something that no one had suggested, but that Captain Li Jiwan insisted on including. The message offered to share human knowledge freely with any species that wanted it, not as a gift from superior to inferior, but as an exchange between civilizations that respected each other. When the message was complete, the crew of the Harmony gathered on the bridge to send humanity's first real communication with alien intelligence. Captain Li Jiwan gave the order, and Communications Officer Kim Doyun transmitted the response not just to the Velkari Empire, but to every known alien civilization in the galaxy. As the message traveled faster than light toward distant worlds, the crew realized that they had just changed the course of galactic history. The Velkari had expected humanity to accept the role of primitive species grateful for alien charity. Instead, they had received a response that challenged the entire foundation of their empire. Dr. Park Min-ho monitored the communication networks and soon detected signs that other alien species were receiving the human message. The response was being forwarded from civilization to civilization as word spread about the species that had dared to reject Velkari superiority. Engineer Choi Youngji realized that humanity had just declared itself ready to enter galactic politics, not as a junior partner, but as an independent power. The consequences of that declaration would soon become clear as the message echoed across the stars and reached every corner of known space. The human message reached alien civilizations across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Within hours of transmission, Communications Officer Kim Doyun detected response signals coming from dozens of different star systems. The message was being forwarded, discussed, and analyzed by species that had never communicated directly with each other before. Admiral Ryu Tae-hyun at Terra Command received the first reports about what was happening in space around Earth. Alien ships that had been hidden in the outer solar system for years suddenly began transmitting messages to the planet below. Species that humanity had never known existed were introducing themselves and asking about the response to the Velkari Empire. Dr. Shin Yoonji had been appointed as Earth's first Director of Interstellar Relations just 3 days after the Harmony sent its message. Her first task was to monitor the flood of communications coming from across known space as alien civilizations reacted to humanity's bold response. The first major revelation came from the Hythran Collective, a group of species that lived in the spiral arm nearest to Earth. Their message explained that they had received similar gifts from the Velkari Empire decades ago. The aliens had offered them transportation assistance in the form of wheeled vehicles and simple roads. We found this amusing, the Hythran message explained, because our civilization had already developed instantaneous matter transmission technology. We could move objects and people across our worlds in seconds, but the Velkari offered us carts and wheels. Dr. Shin Yoonji realized that the Velkari had been making the same mistake with every species they contacted. They observed other civilizations from a distance, made assumptions about their development level, and then offered gifts that were completely inappropriate. More messages arrived throughout the day. The Zephyri Federation reported that the Velkari had gifted them basic communication devices that were inferior to technology they had possessed for thousands of years. The Corvin Republic had been offered simple metalworking techniques, even though their cities were built from materials that could reshape themselves according to weather and need. Intelligence. Officer Nam Junho worked with Dr. Shin Yoonji to analyze these messages, and soon they discovered a disturbing pattern. Every alien civilization reported the same experience with the Velkari Empire. The gifts were always primitive, always condescending, and always designed to keep the receiving species dependent on Velkari guidance. This is not about helping other species develop. Nam Junho concluded, this is about keeping them under control while making it look like charity. The most shocking revelation came from the Altaran Unity, an ancient civilization that had been spacefaring longer than any other known species. Their message included historical records showing that the Velkari Empire had once been just another minor species in a small star system. They had gained power not through superior development, but through a systematic campaign of manipulation and theft. According to Altaran records, the Velkari had approached each advanced civilization with humble requests for knowledge sharing. Once they gained access to alien technology, they would copy it, improve it slightly, and then use it to position themselves as the generous benefactors of less advanced species. The Velkari Empire is built on stolen achievements, the Altaran message explained. They have been playing this game for so long that they probably believe their own lies about being naturally superior. Dr. Park Min-ho discovered something even more disturbing when he analyzed the technical specifications that various species included in their messages. The advanced technology that the Velkari had demonstrated in their original communication was not original Velkari innovation. Each piece could be traced back to a different civilization that the Empire had contacted years or decades earlier. Captain Lee Ji-won received updates about these developments while the Harmony continued its mission in deep space. She realized that humanity's response had accidentally triggered something much larger than a simple diplomatic exchange. Species across the galaxy were beginning to share information with each other for the first time in centuries. The Velkari Empire had maintained its position by keeping other civilizations isolated and dependent. They controlled the flow of information between species and made sure that no one could challenge their version of galactic history. But humanity's public broadcast had broken through those barriers and allowed alien civilizations to communicate. Directly engineer Choi Young-ji monitored the growing communication network and watched as species began to coordinate their responses to Velkari manipulation. The Hithran Collective shared their matter transmission technology with the Zephyri Federation. The Corvan Republic offered to teach other species about their adaptive materials. Ancient knowledge was being exchanged freely for the first time in generations. Cultural analyst Yang Hyok noticed something important about the way alien species were reacting to human culture. The art, music, and philosophy that humanity had included in their message was being studied and discussed across the galaxy. Many species reported that they had never encountered a civilization that valued individual choice and freedom as core principles. Most galactic civilizations are focused on efficiency and order. Jang Hyok explained, "The idea that individuals should be free to choose their own path, even if it creates chaos, is completely new to them." Dr. Yoon Sora received technical data from dozens of alien species who wanted to understand human consciousness research. The concept of creating artificial minds that could think independently was fascinating to civilizations that had always assumed intelligence required biological evolution. But the most significant development came when the ancient Altaran Unity offered to share their complete historical records with any species that wanted access. These records contained detailed information about galactic development over millions of years and proved that the Velkari Empire was a recent creation built on deception. Intelligence Officer Nam Junho analyzed the Altaran historical data and discovered that the galaxy had once been home to hundreds of independent civilizations that traded and communicated freely. The Velkari had gradually gained control by offering to mediate disputes and coordinate trade. Over time, they had positioned themselves as the essential center of galactic civilization. They made everyone dependent on them for communication and trade. Nam Junho reported, then they used that control to steal technology and suppress any species that might challenge their authority. The growing rebellion against Velkari control was not coordinated by any central authority. Each species was making its own decisions about how to respond to the new information. But the result was the same across the galaxy. Civilizations were refusing to accept Velkari gifts, establishing direct communication with each other and sharing technology freely. Captain Bei Jin-hwan commanded the second human exploration vessel that had been launched shortly after the Harmony. His ship detected massive movements of alien vessels throughout the local galactic region. species were sending ambassadors to each other, establishing trade routes that bypassed Velkari control and forming new alliances based on mutual respect, rather than hierarchical dependence. The Velkari Empire's response to these developments was swift and predictable. They sent threatening messages to species that were questioning their authority. They demanded that alien civilizations stop communicating with humanity and return to the traditional pattern of Velkari-mediated contact. But the threats only made the situation worse for the Empire. Species that had been loyal to Velkari authority for generations began to question why they needed permission to talk to other civilizations. The Empire's demands for obedience revealed the true nature of their relationship with other species. Dr. Shin Yunji coordinated Earth's response to the growing galactic crisis and realized that humanity had accidentally started a revolution. The simple act of refusing to accept an insulting gift had exposed the foundation of an empire built on lies and manipulation. As reports came in from across the galaxy, it became clear that the Velkari would not accept the loss of their authority. Quietly, intelligence sources reported that the Empire was mobilizing its war fleets and preparing to restore order through force. The revolution that had started with a human message was about to become a galactic war. The first Velkari war fleet appeared at the edge of human space 3 weeks after the galaxy began its rebellion. General Oh Seung-min stood in the command center at Terra Defense Station and watched the tactical display show ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. The largest Velkari vessels were the size of small moons, and their energy signatures suggested weapon systems that could crack planets. Earth's entire military consisted of 12 patrol ships, 3 orbital defense platforms, and the exploration vessels Harmony and Pioneer that were still in deep space. Against the approaching Velkari armada, humanity looked like insects preparing to fight giants. But General Oh Seung-min had been studying the reports from alien civilizations across the galaxy, and he understood that this war was not really about military strength. The Velkari Empire was fighting to maintain control over species that had discovered the truth about their supposed superiority. Force was their last option after deception had failed. Captain Bae Jinwan commanded the UES Pioneer and found himself in an unexpected position when the war began. His ship was near the Hithran collective worlds when Velkari forces attacked the species that had dared to share their technology with others. Instead of running back to Earth, Safety Captain Bae made a decision that would change the course of the conflict. "We are going to help them," he told his crew. "The Hithran are fighting for the same principles that we believe in. If we abandon them now, then humanity is no better than the Velkari." The Battle of HFY became the first major engagement of what historians would later call the Freedom War. Captain Bae brought his single human ship into a fight between Velkari dreadnoughts and Hithran defense fleets. The Pioneer was tiny compared to the massive alien vessels, but it carried something that changed everything. Dr. Lee Mina, the Pioneer's science officer, had been studying the technical data that alien species shared after humanity's first message. She discovered that Velkari technology was not as advanced as it appeared. Most of their systems were stolen from other civilizations and poorly integrated. The Empire's ships were powerful, but they were also vulnerable to attacks that exploited the incompatible technologies they had forced together. Their shields use Alteran energy matrix technology, Dr. Lee Mina explained as the Pioneer approached the battle. But their weapon systems are based on Corvin plasma dynamics. Those two technologies were never meant to work together, and we can use that against them. The Pioneer's attack on the Velkari flagship surprised everyone in the battle. The human ship targeted the connection points between stolen technologies and caused cascading failures throughout the enemy vessel. The massive Velkari dreadnought lost power and began drifting helplessly, while smaller Hithran ships destroyed its weapons. News of the Pioneer's success spread across the galaxy faster. than the speed of light as alien civilizations shared communication networks that bypassed Velkari control. Species that had been preparing to surrender to Empire forces suddenly realized that the seemingly invincible war machine had critical weaknesses. Captain Li Jiwan received orders to return the Harmony to Earth immediately, but she chose to disobey those orders and join the growing resistance movement. Her ship appeared at the Zephyri Federation worlds, just as Velkari forces were demanding surrender from the species that had rejected their gifts. "This is Captain Li Jiwan of the human exploration vessel Harmony," she broadcast on all frequencies. "We stand with any species that chooses freedom over slavery. The Velkari Empire ends today." The battle that followed showed other alien civilizations, something they had never seen before. Humans fighting not for territory or resources, but for an idea. The Harmony was damaged and outnumbered, but Captain Li Jiwan kept fighting until Zephyri reinforcements arrived to drive off the Velkari attack. Dr. Park Minho made another crucial discovery during the fighting at Zephyri space. He intercepted Velkari military communications and found that their command structure was completely dependent on maintaining the illusion of superiority. When Empire forces began losing battles, their commanders did not know how to adapt because they had never faced organized resistance. They have been bullying weaker species for so long that they forgot how to fight a real war. Dr. Park reported, "Their entire strategy is based on intimidation and overwhelming force. When that fails, they have no backup plan. The war spread across dozens of star systems as alien civilizations chose sides in the conflict between freedom and control. Some species remained loyal to the Velkari Empire, either from fear or because they benefited from the current system. But many others joined the growing alliance of free worlds that humanity had accidentally created." Intelligence Officer Nam Junho coordinated intelligence sharing between human forces and alien resistance groups. He discovered that the Velkari Empire was facing internal problems as their own population began questioning the war. Many Velkari civilians had never known about their government's systematic oppression of other species, and they were shocked by revelations about how their empire really maintained power. The turning point came at the Battle of Proxima Station, when Commander Yang Jisoo led a desperate defense against the largest Velkari fleet ever assembled. Earth's orbital defense platform was equipped with experimental weapons based on technology freely shared by alien allies. The station was outnumbered 1,000 to 1, but Commander Yang refused to surrender. "We are not fighting for conquest or glory," she broadcast to the attacking fleet. "We are fighting for the right of every thinking being to choose their own destiny. That is worth dying for." The battle lasted 18 hours and seemed hopeless until something unexpected happened. Ships from a dozen different alien civilizations appeared at the edge of the system and joined the fight against the Velkari forces. Each species brought their most advanced technology to the battle and coordinated their attacks using human tactical doctrine that emphasized flexibility and innovation. The Velkari fleet was not just defeated, but completely destroyed as alien. Species used their own stolen technology against them. The Empire's most powerful military force was eliminated by civilizations they had spent centuries oppressing and controlling. But the most important victory was not won on any battlefield. Dr. Yoon Sora led a team of human and alien scientists in creating something that would make future Velkari oppression impossible. They built a galactic communication network that could not be controlled or shut down by any single species or government. "Information wants to be free," Dr. Yoon Sora explained as the network went online. "When every species can communicate directly with every other species, then no empire can maintain control through deception and isolation." The new communication system allowed real-time coordination between resistance forces across the galaxy. It also enabled alien civilizations to share their complete technological and cultural knowledge without Velkari interference. The Empire's control over information flow collapsed overnight. Engineer Choi Youngji monitored Velkari internal communications and reported that their empire was beginning to fragment as member species learned the truth about their rulers. Worlds that had been loyal to Velkari authority for generations were declaring independence and joining the Free Worlds Alliance. Cultural. Analyst Jang Hyok noticed something important about how the war was changing alien civilizations. Species that had been isolated and controlled for centuries were rediscovering their own cultures and values. The concept of individual freedom that humanity had introduced was spreading and evolving as each civilization adapted it to their own traditions. The Velkari Empire still controlled many worlds and possessed powerful military forces, but their authority was crumbling from within. The war had become less about military conquest and more about ideas. The Empire was fighting to maintain a system based on hierarchy and control, while the Free Worlds Alliance offered cooperation and mutual respect. As the conflict continued, it became clear that the outcome would not be determined by superior weapons or larger fleets. The war would be won by whichever side could inspire more species to fight for their vision of what galactic civilization should become. The final battle of the Freedom War was not fought with weapons, but with words that carried the power to reshape entire civilizations. Admiral Lee Jiwon now commanded a fleet of ships from dozens of different species as they approached the Velkari homeworld. The Empire's last stronghold was defended by massive orbital fortresses and millions of loyal soldiers who still believed in their superiority over other species. Dr. Yoon Sora had spent months working with alien scientists to create something that had never existed in galactic history. The new communication network could reach every inhabited world simultaneously and translate messages into any language instantaneously. For the first time in millions of years, every thinking being in the galaxy could hear the same message at the same moment. Cultural analyst Yang Hyok prepared the most important broadcast in galactic history while the combined fleet held position outside Velkari space. This message would not threaten or demand surrender. Instead, it would offer something that the Empire had never encountered in all their centuries of conquest and control. "We are going to forgive them," Jang Hyok explained to the assembled fleet. "Commanders, not because they deserve it, but because forgiveness is stronger than revenge. The Velkari Empire was built on the idea that some species are naturally superior to others. We are going to prove them wrong by treating them as equals." The broadcast began with a simple statement that reached every world in Velkari space. The message acknowledged the suffering that the Empire had caused and the lies they had used to maintain power. But instead of demanding punishment, it offered the Velkari people a choice that their leaders had never given to anyone else. "We do not seek to destroy the Velkari Empire," the message explained. "We seek to transform it into something better. Every species in this galaxy, including the Velkari, has the right to choose their own future. We offer you the same freedom that you denied to others for so long." The response from Velkari worlds was immediate and shocking. Civilian populations, who had been told that other species were primitive and dangerous, suddenly heard messages of forgiveness and cooperation from the very aliens they had been taught to despise. The contrast between Empire propaganda and the reality of the situation created massive social upheaval across Velkari space. Emperor Velthok faced the greatest crisis in Velkari history as his own people began questioning everything they had been taught about their civilization. Reports came in from across the empire of civilian demonstrations demanding an end to the war and the establishment of diplomatic relations with the Free Worlds Alliance. Dr. Shin Yunji coordinated with resistance groups inside Velkari space who were working to overthrow their oppressive government. These rebels were not foreign agents, but Velkari citizens who had learned the truth about their empire and chosen to fight for change from within. "The empire is collapsing from the inside," she reported. "Their own people are rejecting the lies they have been told for generations. Military units are refusing orders and civilian governments are declaring independence. The breakthrough came when Prince Kethvar, heir to the Velkari throne, made a public statement that shocked the entire galaxy. He rejected his father's authority and called for immediate negotiations with the Free Worlds Alliance. His message was broadcast across Velkari space and inspired millions of citizens to join the growing rebellion against imperial authority. "I have seen the records that our government tried to hide," Prince Kethvar announced. "Our empire was built on theft and deception. We are not superior to other species. We are not even equal to them because we have chosen to be less than we could be. It is time to change." Captain Kim Doyen detected massive military movements throughout Velkari space as Empire forces split between those who remained loyal to the old system and those who joined the rebellion. The civil war that erupted was brief but decisive, as most Velkari citizens chose freedom over the false pride their empire had offered them. Admiral Lee Ji-won made the decision to enter Velkari space not as a conqueror, but as a liberator. Her combined fleet moved slowly toward the Empire homeworld while broadcasting messages of peace and cooperation. When Imperial forces tried to attack, they found that many of their own ships refused to fire on the Liberation Fleet. The final confrontation took place in orbit above the Velkari capital world, where Emperor Velthak made his last stand with a handful of loyal ships. But even this battle was won with words rather than weapons when Dr. Park Min-ho broadcast a simple message directly to the Emperor's flagship. "Your empire is already over," the message said. "Your own people have chosen a different path. You can continue fighting a war that cannot be won, or you can help us build something better for everyone, including the Velkari. Emperor Velthak's surrender," was broadcast across the galaxy as the symbol of a new era in interstellar relations. The Velkari Empire officially ceased to exist when its ruler abdicated in favor of a democratic government that would represent all species in former imperial territory equally. Dr. Shin Yoonji worked with leaders from across the galaxy to establish the Galactic Cooperation Council with representatives from every known civilization. Earth was given just one vote among hundreds, but that equality was exactly what humanity had fought to achieve. No species would ever again claim the right to rule over others. The transformation of former Velkari worlds was not easy or immediate. Generations of imperial propaganda had taught entire populations that they were naturally superior to other species. Learning to live as equals required massive social and cultural changes that took years to complete. But many Velkari embraced their new freedom with enthusiasm that surprised even their former enemies. Prince Kethvar became the first Velkari ambassador to the Galactic Cooperation Council and worked tirelessly to repair the damage his species had caused across the galaxy. Engineer Choi Young-ji led the effort to dismantle the weapons and fortifications that the Empire had used to maintain control. But instead of destroying these systems entirely, the Council converted them into exploration platforms and research stations that would benefit all galactic civilizations. Cultural analyst Jang Hyuk established the first Galactic Cultural Exchange, program that allowed species to share their art, music, literature, and philosophy with others freely. The program became one of the most popular initiatives in Council history, as civilizations discovered the beauty and wisdom in alien cultures they had never been allowed to know. The galaxy's first truly cooperative deep space exploration mission launched 5 years after the war ended. The expedition included scientists and explorers from every known species working together to map regions beyond the rim of explored space. Captain Kim Do-yoon commanded the mission ship that carried the hopes of dozens of civilizations toward unknown stars. Dr. Yoon Sora continued her research into consciousness and artificial intelligence with the help of alien scientists who brought completely different perspectives to these questions. The collaboration produced breakthroughs that no single species could have achieved alone and proved that cooperation was always more powerful than competition. the most important change was not in technology or politics, but in the way that species thought about each other. The old galactic order had been based on hierarchy and domination, where stronger civilizations controlled weaker ones. The new order was built on respect and cooperation, where every species contributed their unique gifts to the common good. Decades later, Captain Kim Doyen would teach classes at the Galactic Academy about the day when humanity's simple message changed everything. Students from hundreds of different worlds learned about the moment when one species chose dignity over safety and inspired a galaxy to demand its freedom. The Velkari Empire had not ended in destruction or conquest, but in transformation. The aliens who had once claimed superiority over all other species became partners in building a civilization based on equality and mutual respect. Their empire died not from external attack, but from the power of an idea that proved stronger than any weapon. The echo of humanity's first message continued to spread beyond the known galaxy as exploration missions carried the principles of freedom and cooperation to distant stars. Wherever thinking beings existed, they would eventually hear the words that had changed everything and choose whether to embrace the light of freedom or remain trapped in the darkness of oppression.